2023 was probably one of the best years in gaming since 2018, but unfortunately it was also one of the worst years in the gaming industry. And in such a crazy year of releases, I didn't actually play many new games. This year was mainly me getting through my backlog, so I thought I would rank all the games I played in 2023, because every other YouTuber does it. To be clear, these are games that I played in 2023, not released in 2023, and I also haven't played some of the big releases, or even finished some. For example, I'm still on my first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, but I definitely haven't played enough to convey my full thoughts on the game just yet. And I haven't played Alan Wake 2, nor have I played Mario Bros. Wonder, but I will get around to them at some point. I've never really been a big COD guy. I've never really dabbled in these games in the past, mainly because I've just never had the desire to. But at the start of this year, I decided to pick up a few Call of Duties to play their campaigns, and they just didn't do much for me. Don't get me wrong, Call of Duty World War II isn't a bad game, and I'm sure if I cared for online play, which I don't, I would have got a lot more out of my experience. But I'm purely looking at this from the campaign perspective. It's a very short, much like every other COD campaign, and it's quite generic. They did have a few emotional heartbeats at the end, and there is stakes, which is good, but nothing that really gripped me. The gameplay is decent enough, I have no problem with it. The guns are obviously all designed after the guns that were in World War II, and the set pieces were really nice, and some of the cinematic shots did look pretty good. But apart from that, it's a game that you can complete in less than a day, and I didn't think it was bad, but it just didn't blow me away by any means. I have a very similar opinion on this game too. It isn't anything bad, but it just didn't blow me away for any reason. The reason why this is higher than Call of Duty World War II is because I thought the story was a bit better, mainly because of how they were juggling the different characters and the locations. The set pieces were pretty good, and the story had stakes and the ending was decent enough. The gameplay is different enough to Call of Duty World War II to be worth buying, but also has some similarities. I thought it was a bit better, mainly because the guns were more powerful and had more speed to them. Again, it wasn't bad, but I just didn't think it was anything amazing. Rayman is a good game, and it's a really good platformer, but it just didn't really stick with me. I had my fun, and then I turned it off, and now I can't remember much about it. It's just a very forgettable platformer, but it's a decent time if you just want to have some fun. This year was also the first year I got my hands on a GameCube, and one of the first games I picked up was Mario Kart, because on any console it is good fun, and I really enjoyed my time with this game. Although every Mario Kart game has its gimmicks, I feel like Double Dash uses it best. The gimmick this time is the fact that 2 characters are on the car instead of 1, which is actually pretty cool. You can make cool combos with this and play to your own style. There's also cool little details like the fact the character on the back will hold the item first. And what is even cooler is that certain characters get specific items that others can't. For example, Bowser gets a huge shell and Donkey Kong gets a huge banana peel. The tracks in this game are also really good. This is the game where Baby Park came from, and tracks like DK Mountain, Mushroom Bridge and Dino Jungle came from, and my personal favourite, Wario Coliseum. There is also a challenge in this game where you have to get the first place in the Star Cup on 100cc, which doesn't sound like a lot, but have you seen the GameCube controller? This is the original Modern Warfare, and it's praised to be one of the best Call of Duties, but I just found it decent. I enjoyed my time with the campaign, but I don't see myself shoveling hundreds of hours into the online mode like other people. And they're good games, but they're just not for me. But this one was clearly the best out of the 3 I played. I felt more engaged with it, and the gunplay felt very smooth. The story was decent enough, and some of the set pieces and missions were really good, like the Gillyweed mission that I thought was amazing. Yeah, it's a good time, but after a while it gets stale. But I don't know, I just think these games are not bad, I'm just not the target audience. I'm not a huge COD fan. I have tried to play Jedi Fallen Order many times before, but never completed it until the release of Jedi Survivor, where I decided to play fully so that I could play Survivor. And yeah, it's great, the story is actually really cool, the mocap acting is amazing, and the gameplay is really fun. But there are some very glaring issues, like for instance on the first planet you go to on the ship, forgot what it's called now. Hold on. Zepho. Zepho is a pain in the arse traverse. I have seen labyrinths that are less complicated than this. I get that Zepho is supposed to teach you the basics of the story and more complex combat, but it was just such a maze that it confused me. And some of the other planets are better, but some of them do have this quite mazy feel, but I did get used to it over time. This game is visually stunning and has so much going on. The variety of enemies is nice and it did immerse me. But the story, although good, did get a tiny bit lost in the middle, which did throw me a bit, but then it kind of collects itself at the end and gives a satisfying ending. Overall, this game is pretty good, it just has some major flaws that push it back for me personally. I'm going to be honest, I bought this game on a complete whim. Most of this year I was piled with work and revision, so short games is what I was kind of gravitating towards. And I did have a lot of fun with this game, and the art style is very unique and interesting, and the fighting mechanics are great and varies from which character you play as. The story is okay, but I feel like the gameplay and the style of game elevated it more. I don't have much to say about it, but I would definitely recommend to anyone who likes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or just wants to have a fun beat 'em up play, to definitely play this game. I have always heard that the Mafia games are good, but I just never really thought of playing them, until I was in CEX and the trilogy pack was at a good price. So I decided that I'll pick it up and at least play the first one, and I was certainly blown away. The story was really good. I like when games look into the future and then take us back. Although it's a cliche gimmick at this point, I still really enjoy it. I thought the mission structure was great and the stories had a lot of stakes, and the twist at the end was actually unexpected personally, but it does have some flaws. The game claims to be an open world game, but never really gives you time in the story to explore that open world. You just get thrown through mission structure to mission structure, and the racing level is horrendous. The mechanics of the racing cars just feel clunky and weird, and I really didn't like it. But the Definitive Edition's graphics are amazing. This game looks so good, and it is a huge upgrade to the original's gameplay which I saw after playing it. Overall, it's a great game with a few flaws. I've never really been a Resident Evil fan, mainly because it's just part of the survival horror genre, which before 2021 I wouldn't even dare touch. Nowadays I don't actively seek them out, but I will play the recommended ones, which is exactly why I picked up Resident Evil 3 Remake. This game is visually stunning, some of the cutscenes look super good. The story is decent, but it gets much better by the end, with the final boss fight being some of the best parts of the game. The gameplay is where it's at though. The gunplay in this game feels really good, and was one of my fave parts about the game. And this game is genuinely scary in parts, especially that spider part. When I bought the GameCube, Pikmin and Double Dash were the first games that I bought, and I enjoyed both, but Pikmin 1 is just a shining star. This game follows Olimar after he crashes his ship on a mysterious planet, where he meets these cute little creatures that want to help him fix his ship, but he only has 30 days to do so before he brutally dies of suffocation. Yeah, this game is super fun, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Its gameplay loop is just great, and although the GameCube controller probably isn't the best controller to play this game on, I can ignore the clunkiness due to the great gameplay. I found myself just loving this game, and I wanted to protect my Pikmin at all costs, which hurt more when a few of them died. Overall, this is a great start to the series, and I will probably play the others in 2024. I don't know what it is about this game, but I just love it so much. I got completely lost in this game, and although it only took me a few days to complete, it just felt so engrossing. Although at some points it was quite clunky, which did annoy me. But every time they surpassed a level or a world, I don't know what you would call it, it implemented something new that you had to figure out and master, which is why I really love this game. It was a fun puzzle game that tested me and used creative and unique ideas to enhance the already great gameplay loop. The main reason why it's not higher is mainly because of its clunky nature, but yeah, it's a really good puzzle game that I'd recommend to a lot of people. I feel like when I was a kid, there was 3 types of people. There was Mario kids, Sonic kids, and Pokemon kids. And I kind of fell into the Mario kids part. But I did dabble in the franchise. I used to watch the show, I used to collect a lot of Pokemon cards, and I played a lot, and I mean a lot, of that Roblox Pokemon game Brick Bronze. Rip Brock Bronze. It will forever be in my heart. But the one thing I never really did, to my recollection, was play the actual fucking video games, which is mainly because I'm not a big RPG person. I know, how original. But this year, I thought I'd pick up the most recent Pokemon game, and I decided on Violet, mainly because I'm a sucker for futuristic shit. And I fell in love with this game. I was genuinely getting lost in this game. I would start playing and then look up at the time and it was been like 5 hours. I upgraded my Quaxley to the best it could be, and I named him Gary, because, why not? I beat all the gyms twice, I collected as many Pokemon as I could, I got so frustrated with the final fight and the one with the Elite Four, but I just kept on trying until I won, and when I did, I just felt so much satisfaction. This game is great, but there is one major flaw. This game is buggy as shit. I've heard that it was worse on launch, but Jesus Christ, this game has a lot of bugs. There's a lot of pop-in, Pokemon phasing through the floor, visual bugs, delays, the texture's not in place, and parts of the world's disappearing right in my eye view, and people disappearing in my eye view. If this game was made from a smaller company, I could look past this, because the game is so good. But it's not. It's made by the highest grossing company of all time. It's above Disney, for fuck's sake. Now, I'm not saying this is the developer's fault. They didn't do a bad job. They did really, really good. But it's the fault of Game Freak for not giving them enough time to make this game. A year is not enough with such a huge concept. And I did later on play the DLC, which is also great and does run a lot better than the base game. I would recommend this game, but only if you're okay with a lot of visual bugs and pop-in. Super Mario 3D World is great. Is it as good as the other 3D Mario games? No. But is it still a brilliant game? Yes, 100%. This game is like if Nintendo just went crazy with their ideas. And that is great. Some of these levels were really unique, and I love everything Nintendo did for this game. The story exists, but when you're comparing it to other 3D Mario games, it's obviously not as good. The only reason why it's so high is because of the level design, because I had so much fun, and the gameplay is just so great. And the reason why it's above Pokemon Violet is because it actually runs better. I never did try out the Bowser's Fury mode, but I've heard great things, and I would recommend this game to anyone who likes Mario games. I have had GTA 5 for a very long time now, because although I'm not really an online guy as much as I was back in like 2020, I still love GTA 5 online. It is some of the most fun I've had in a game, and it's one of my favourite games to play with my mates. So when the PS5 remaster came out, I bought the campaign as it was a good price, and in 2023 I decided to try it out, and I loved it. The way Rockstar uses these free characters and is able to tell such a good story whilst juggling the free, without making one feel less important than the others, is just super impressive. All the three main characters are great, and the side characters are also good, but where it is at is the open world. Los Santos feels so alive. This world is filled with believable NPCs, and there is so much to do all over the city. The reason why this one isn't higher is because although the story is great, it just left me feeling satisfied, yet knowing that I probably wouldn't play the game again. And in comparing that to Rockstar's next game, Red Dead Redemption 2, that story left me with an emotional stamp, but also left me satisfied wanting to replay the game right again. But GTA 5 is still really impressive, and it makes me very excited for GTA 6 in 2025. My favourite game of all time on the PS4 is most likely God of War. But if I had to pick another one, it would be Spider-Man PS4. Spider-Man PS4 was such an engrossing game. I loved every second of it. Its story is so rich and emotionally heartbreaking, and yet left me wanting more. I could literally swing for hours in this game and not get bored. New York's open world just feels so alive, and I thought it was brilliant. And then when I got a PS5 back in 2021, the first game I played was Spider-Man Miles Morales. And that game was brilliant. I loved Miles as Spider-Man, and his electric powers and invisibility made me prefer his playstyle more than Peter's. Two complaints I had was mainly the same as everybody else. It was a bit too short for the asking price of 70 quid. The side content had not evolved that much from Spider-Man PS4, leaving me wanting more. So when Spider-Man 2 got announced, I was hyped, and the more and more I saw of it, it got me more and more excited to get my hands on it. So when the day came of its release, it was the only thing I wanted to play, and it was amazing. The story, in my opinion, isn't as good as Spider-Man PS4, but definitely is still a brilliant story. I loved Kraven as the villain, and the story juggling both Spider-Men was so well done. And the symbiote was great, but my one problem with it, which is massive spoilers ahead by the way, I'll give you 3 seconds to click off now, was the fact that when Venom turned up, it felt like the story started rushing, and less than 2 hours later, it was all done, and that was really jarring compared to Act 1 and 2 taking their time to expand the story. All I'm saying is 4 more hours would have been nice, but what we got was still great. The combat has been vastly improved, making it more challenging yet more rewarding. They split up upgrades and skill trees which made it easier to handle, but also made you think about what you wanted to do. The symbiote powers are great. I loved being Symbiote Spider-Man, but the best thing about this game is the open world and traversal. For traversal they added web wings, which is a massive improvement, making it much faster to cross New York. Although I barely used the fast travel in Spider-Man PS4, I don't think I used it once in Spider-Man 2. This was also the first game that made me think this couldn't be done on PS4. The graphics are beautiful and the set pieces were pristine. One of my huge problems with the game though is that the side content was not that decent. There was some decent stuff like the Flame, Brooklyn Visions, and my personal favourite, the Cultural Museum missions, but it still felt like a lot of the side content was just ripped from Spider-Man PS4 and not really improved upon. It just felt like they went, go there, go here, collect this, then collect this, and then once you collect them all you get a cutscene which sets up a DLC or a sequel. My point is, it just didn't feel very rewarding. Overall, this game was great, and it's my personal game of the year. But saying that, I know objectively that there is better games, like Baldur's Gate 3. I think Baldur's Gate 3 deserves all the praise and awards it's getting, and from what I've played so far, it's brilliant. The fact that a game that was so hated 3 years back is now such a brilliant game shows something. I don't want to go into too much detail as I have a video coming out about this game, but what I can say is I love it. The feeling of freedom to do what you want in this game is great, the open world is brilliant and the story is very gripping. And come on, Keanu Reeves, I can't not like this story. The gunplay was great, there is a lot to choose from which all has different play styles, and not to mention the modifying is super cool and unique. Driving in this game just feels so good, and the side content needs a bit of work, but it's still pretty good. There is a lot going on in this game and a lot of characters, but I feel like they handle it pretty well, and not to mention all the different endings you can get are brilliant. The DLC was also brilliant. I felt like a proper spy, except that ending mission was a bit weird, but even the base game alone of Cyberpunk 2077 is brilliant. Although it shouldn't have taken 3 years after launch to get to this great game, and it should have been like this at the start, it's still one of my favourite games I've played this year. Overall, this year for me in gaming has been alright. I didn't have much time as I was revising a lot, and I had a lot less time than normally, which did lead to me actually playing some shorter games that were more fun because of that. I don't know what 2024 has in store for us, but now that I've got more time and I'm ready to play some longer games in my backlog, I will be able to complete some more stuff. And I want to play some new games as well. I'm very excited for games like Skull and Bones and Rise of the Ronin. And I'm excited to play some games that came out this year as well that I didn't get around to play, like aforementioned Alan Wake 2 and Tears of the Kingdom. And hopefully my playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, which will probably never end because everything is so good. Genuinely, I keep on getting distracted.